I'm Andrew Bustamante, a former covert CIA intelligence officer and founder of the Everyday Espionage training platform. Ask me anything. I share the truth about espionage. After serving in the US Air Force and the Central Intelligence Agency, I have seen the value and impact of well-organized, well-executed intelligence operations. The same techniques that shape international events can also serve everyday people in their daily lives. I have witnessed the benefits in my own life and the lives of my fellow agency officers. Now my mission is to share that knowledge with all people. Some will listen, some will not. But the future has always been shaped by those who learn. I have been verified privately by the IAMA moderators. Hopefully Op is still reading this thread. About a year or two ago there was an AMA from another former CIA field agent who was releasing a book about his experience. He ended his AMA after another poster made a comment something along the lines of oak or hickory, in reference to what type of wood he wanted his coffin to be. The op replied to the commenter essentially telling him and any other former field agents who were apparently harassing him to frick off. Is it common for those who serve in the intelligence field to have a disdain for those who retire from service? You hit a very sensitive topic here. Well done. The short answer is yes. When an agency person leaves, they essentially become a punching bag for anyone still on the inside. Their disdain increases exponentially if the leaving officer writes a memoir or takes on any kind of public image. In many ways, it's an insider shaming tool to keep people in place. It is also a bit of a sucker punch because anytime an officer leaves and succeeds, it makes everyone who chose to stay in place second guess their decision. So there is a balance to be met. But as far as violence against one another, that would be contrary to every fiber of any public servant. We can disagree, we can fight, but we don't harm one another. That is just us doing the enemy's job for them. Who do you think killed JFK? I have no idea, and it is extremely frustrating to me. Are there really big secrets that you know that could land you / the country in terrible trouble if it came out to the public? Yes. And I wish I could forget them. Aliens? What are some signs that people are being mischievous or other psychological tricks you may know? Never trust a quiet person. They are listening and learning, and that makes them the smartest person in the room. Considering you said listen, don't talk, in another reply, this is quite funny. Is it true that on foreign soil, one call will summon black subs to take you to safety? Just curious. Yes, but with different delivery times. 30 minutes or your agent is free. More like 30 minutes and your agent could be dead. What would you say is the number one rule for undercover agents? Listen. Don't talk. Number one rule for people in general. There's a Calvin Coolidge quote I have always loved. I've never seen a man listen his way out of a job. Given the ease with which we can communicate electronically today, is there still a role in modern tradecraft for dead drops? Same question on number stations, but because they are known to still exist, I presume the answer is yes. If anything, the growing dependency and usage of digital technology underscores the value of classic tradecraft like dead drops. I would take a physical dead drop over a digital transmission any day. Way fewer risks, greater control, and no permanent record. Yep, never ever trust a third party to keep your data safe. Because they won't. What's the closest you can get to talking about a past mission without getting in trouble? And can you give us a story that gets that close to the line? I had to run counter surveillance against a rogue state target in a third world country in 2011. I was supporting a second officer on the ground who had to do face-to-face meetings despite not knowing the mental state or intentions of the target. This is the worst type of operation to run because we have no information and no control, but the potential payout is significant enough to outweigh the risk. When we got eyes on the target and observed their behavior, they were highly unpredictable, wearing winter clothes in a hot climate, appearing openly hostile and aggressive to strangers on the street, clearly disheveled and surly. Because the operating window was so limited, we had to make a decision whether or not to allow the meeting or enter the target separately. We ultimately decided to allow the in-person meeting in a public space only to find out that the target wasn't strapped with dynamite or intending to kill our officer, but rather he had a nasty flu, but was dedicated enough to talking to an American that he made the trip anyway. After he vomited on the officer's shoes, we were able to collect enough intelligence to put a dent in that rogue state's operational objectives for over a year. Was the agent compensated for his shoes? Asking the real questions. To questions. What are some key skills you'd recommend for someone wanting to pursue a career in intelligence? What graduate programs would you recommend for someone in intelligence? Key skills would include mastering short-term memory and mastering conversational dynamics. As far as graduate programs go, look into anthropology, foreign area studies, and sociology. If you go into the hard sciences, you could also end up in intelligence, but less likely in the field. How often does America have a near miss that the general population is completely oblivious about? I think more importantly, America often has huge victories that Americans can never hear about. Talking about how CIA thwarted a massive attack in Chicago or prevented a terrorist attack at a concert doesn't make for good news. If anything, it incites fear and negatively impact the communities that were originally targeted. This answer is frightening. Lol. How much can you tell about a person by innocent things, like their burrito order at Chipotle? Innocent people don't eat at Chipotle. He got us, boys, scatter. What's the coolest spy fact about yourself you're able to tell us? Is there a gadget that 11-year-old me would freak out over? I once was workout buddies with General Petraeus when he was the director of CIA, and he kicks my butt in morning PT for a week straight. As for a cool gadget for an 11-year-old, we had a tech guy who accidentally invented fart spray that lasted for hours after it permeated the air. He was trying to create an adhesive spray that would allow rubber soles and rubber gloves to temporarily stick to wet vertical surfaces. In Narcos there were depictions of some CIA personnel having real disdain for the D in their war on drugs. Any of it true? Totally true. CIA is like the oldest child in a family. They believe they are the best, doing the most important work, and worthy of the most attention. And the funny thing is, CIA even has their own counter-narcotics element to do this job better than they do it. Yes, tax them, quality control them, and let consumers choose for themselves. How could they do this job better when the CIA was slinging crack on the West Coast? Exactly. What motivates someone to get involved in intelligence work in your opinion? What motivates someone in another regime to cooperate with intelligence work in your opinion? Motivations are a tricky thing. Many of us get into it because we are curious and service driven. Who wouldn't want to try, right? But for those who ultimately sell the secrets of their own county to an enemy, that is a much darker world of manipulation and deceit. Hazard a guess for the latter, or is that too inside baseball for an amateur? Ego. They think they are smarter than everyone else, and they want to cash in on the gamble. Some win, many lose. In your experience, who was the most professional foreign intelligence agency you engaged with? The Japanese? I know. Who even thinks of the Japanese intelligence service? That's awesome. Prior Reich member from time in the army. Thank you for the ammo. This is a cool read. I'm having a hard time formulating this question properly, so my apologies if it doesn't make sense. With your best guess, how many years behind are us civilians to the government in terms of technology, if at all? I would say that the commercial sector of the United States is about 10 years ahead of government. Unless you want to be operating on Windows 7 and asking Facebook to share facial recognition best practices, the average American consumer is on the cutting edge of technology far more than the federal government. DARPA research advancements tend to be tech deployment for specific applications. Things like drones and target recognition software in certain deployment configurations can be extremely advanced and extremely creative and cutting edge. It doesn't make their standard use equipment up to date and can't be used for that. You've got people deploying sci-fi weapons and communicating about it on freaking Windows 7 laptops that are 4 patch cycles behind in some cases. And these are only the stories that get public. Frick knows what they're freaking up that we never see. What's your opinion on Xi's recent campaign to expand Chinese influence by building rails and centralized infrastructure around the world? More specifically, how do you think they will leverage these projects to gain access/influence in Africa, the Middle East? The Chinese are singularly skilled at building influence by investing in tangible infrastructure. Most investment in the US is intangible and not directly impactful to the majority of Americans. For that reason, we don't feel ingratiated to those investing the money. The Chinese know that building a bridge today means every person who crosses that bridge knows our friends the Chinese gave us this bridge, and that appreciation lasts for multiple generations. I was amazed while visiting Kenya a few years ago how many times I heard the expression, "The Chinese built that," or "The Chinese are building that." Indeed. And in a few years, when we can't repay those loans because of our trash leaders and their grubby corrupt fingers, they take over sea and airports. And it's happening in many places across the continent.